most of the voices that you hear in the score are processed vocals played out of an iwi, which is an electronic wind instrument.
Ellos son los residentes de Ciudad Elementos.
My name is Lalo from Spoiler Time, and it's so nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. So I want to start this interview by saying that I'm a huge fan of all your work, and as always, the music of Elemental is just fantastic, and I really love it. So thank you for this opportunity, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. That's nice to hear.
The trailers for this movie have a quote that say "Elements don't mix," and by listening to your composition, I found a really nice mix of sounds, instruments, and tonalities. So my question is, how did you think of those elements? How did you choose them? Or more important, how did you make them work together?
It's interesting. Elements don't mix has got to be the idea of the story, that this will never work. So I guess the notion of the music is, well, maybe that's not true, and maybe they do mix. And to that end, I found myself having just tons of different ideas. Just, it's never more fun on a movie than when you begin, because when you begin, anything's possible. I mean, and then as you get on, ideas you love, maybe they don't work as well. Maybe ideas you love, but the director wouldn't. But typically for me, it's just experimentation. Here's a vocal pattern, here's a metal pattern, and put it up against this image, and what do you think? And how does it hit my ears? I always try to imagine myself as a member of an audience, looking and listening, and hope that I am honest with myself when I make choices, that it's about making the movie as best as it can be, as opposed to satisfying some creative musical instinct in myself. At best, it can be both, which is, I really like this idea and it really works. But in the end, you have to be mindful of the movie you're involved in, and you want to very much respect what it's going for.
In the movie, we see that everything is made of these four elements, right? That the Greeks considered to be the basic elements of life. So I've always admired how can you create very simple melodic ideas and then growing them into be a full orchestral piece, right? So can you tell us more about this creative process of yours, of start from something really basic and then growing this idea?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a process that I've been involved in for as long as I can remember has really been getting in a room with a small group of players. I guess since the pandemic, it's been more one-on-one and a lot of remote, back and forths. But with most of these players, all of these players in this environment, I've worked with for a long time. And in these environments, these kind of one-on-one environments, anything goes. And I'll bring certain ideas in. I'll suggest instrumentation. I'll get suggestions from players about what about this, and we'll just see where that goes. And that's probably when you describe small, how it begins. But it begins very much with a sense of intricacy, I guess, because there's not much happening yet. I'm hearing things coming out of left and right speakers, and at all times I'm making dramatic evaluations. What does this do to this scene? And then there's always a moment where you say, okay, this works, but it ceases to work right here. What does it need right here? Well, it needs bigger to get bigger. It needs more lushness. And then as a matter of course, and as a matter of process, you say, well, what would happen if I added strings? What would happen if I added rich brass? And by trial and error, you make these choices, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but when they do, it's pretty pleasing.
So Thomas, this is your fourth movie working with Disney Pixar, and it's a studio that's always seeking to be better and better, to create better and better products and leave a mark on the industry of animation. So how has Thomas Newman's approach to compose music has changed for the past 10 years? And how do you push yourself to create music that sounds new,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, all I can say, I guess, is more than anything, what I want to take away from a project I work on is to really enjoy how it sounds. So for me, I just want to like it when it's over. And I hope that keeps me sharp and it keeps me wanting to do, as good a job as I can. What works and why, and can we make this better? And that goes all the way to the mix, where I'm still peeling things away, I still consider mixing an act of composition.
As we know, this is the just the second movie in the seat of the director for Peterson, and with your long career as a composer, how does the creative process with the director change from one young director to one with more experience, like, for example, Sam Mendes? What different instructions or requirements do they give to you?
I mean, I think it really depends person to person. I suppose, I mean, Sam Mendes has an incredible set of ears. He was a very quick learner. I think he had such a career in theater and a real sense of work ethic. I mean, and Pete shares that work ethic. You're right, it's his second movie, but he has great instincts. So I think it's my job as a composer. I mean, I have to protect Pete, and I have to honor Pete at all times. And I have to decide if I believe what he's saying, or if I don't believe what he's saying, and everything in between. So it ends up being my skills as a communicative person that will, you know, what is Pete saying here? Or is he feeling something that he's not expressing well? Is he expressing it perfectly? And, you know, you just, a person is a person, a collaboration is a collaboration. You kind of want to take it at its most respectful. And, you know, I always have to remember that Pete's been on this movie for 7 years. I've been on it for 7 or 8 months. So I very much want to respect what he's done. At the same time, I don't want to lay down flat and let him say, no, this is what it should be. And he doesn't want that from me either. So it's tough. These are people skills.
You mentioned this in some of the previous answers for my questions, but I noticed that a key element in the composition of this composition of Elemental is the use of the voice, the human voice. So can you tell me more about this? Why did you choose them to be the voice, like one more instrument of your composition?
Most of the voices that you hear in the score are processed vocals played out of an iwi, which is an electronic wind instrument. I have a player named Steve Tavallone that I've worked with for 1,000 years, who is so expressive and has found ways to make this kind of vocal processing so fluid. And I guess both of us respond to this because it's so emotive. It's so flavorful. And we just started getting together and, you know, hey, how about this? Or what about that? And, you know, some vocal chatters, some solo, you know, high, more childlike voices, and everything else just kind of grows implicitly and again, non-intellectually.
I'm curious to know if there's a special piece of the score that holds a specific memory or fun fact that you want to share with the audience. I don't know, maybe...
Yeah, you know, the bubble date was a piece I had worked on early, and it was something that I liked a lot. It was something that was created very, very quickly. It was like a 6-minute thing. And when it was, I think I made it before our first kind of in-person meeting with Pete Sohn, and I remember, you know, Pete was nervous, I was nervous. It's a first meeting. How's it going to go down? What's it like to work with him? What's it like for him to work with me, and all that stuff. And I think this idea for the bubble date, I saved for last. He thought I did it as a kind of a strategy. You know, there's never a strategy for, you know, how you're going to present to people. It's just always slightly uncomfortable. Anyway, I played it late in the meeting, and he just was blown away by it. And it was so stylish. I thought, wow, this is good news. This is good news for what Pete is going to be creatively open for, and what truly gave me satisfaction in writing, and particularly in looking at the film as that all happened. So I think that may have been my favorite moment.
Great. So Thomas, that was my last question. So I just want to say thank you again for this huge honor.
Oh, thanks for the great questions,
nice talking to you, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Have a great one.